Welcome to American Dreams, Keys to Success, with your host, Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm here today with Noah Alper. He is the founder of Noah's Bagels and also a serial entrepreneur. Noah, welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Alan. It's nice to be here.
Noah, can you give me some background of how did you get into the bagel business and fast forward to where you are today?
I got into the bagel business because my brother gave me the idea to open a bagel shop in Berkeley. This was the late 80s. There weren't a lot of great bagels in the Bay Area. And, as a younger brother, I just kind of did what I was told. And I said, I'll at least look into it. I can't tell you I'm going to do it. I took 1 year. I looked around at the landscape, and I discovered that bagels not only was something that was desired in the San Francisco Bay region, but across the country it was becoming a very large phenomenon. And so after looking at it for a period of roughly a year, I opened the first shop in Berkeley, California. Was
this your first business?
No, I had started 4 other businesses before this, so I guess you would call me a serial entrepreneur. It's just kind of in my DNA in a certain way.
So when you did the bagel shop, you got a shop open up in Berkeley. Mm-hmm. What do you feel helped make Noah's a success?
Well, I think it was a lot of things. I think that we assembled a great team of employees. We created a fantastic atmosphere for those employees. We had a wonderful product. We executed it well every day, which in the food business is not easy. And the product itself was delicious. So I think we had just sort of the whole package, not to mention the fact that we chose very carefully where we would locate, and our locations also turned out to be, for the most part, very, very good.
How quickly did you expand locations?
We started with 1 store in 1989, and by the time we sold the business in 1996, we had 38 stores. But we started very, very slowly. I'm originally from New England, so I understand building a business brick by brick, which is really not very a popular notion these days, but that's kind of how the way I was accustomed to doing things. And so we started off very slow and really didn't start to pull the trigger on rapid expansion until we had a really good team in place. And so that wasn't until really 91, 92, so that was about 3 years into it. And then we pretty much doubled from our base each year after that. And we were told by really experts in quick-serve retailing rollouts that you go much beyond that formula and you can get yourself into trouble. So a lot of what we did, frankly, Alan, was we listened to people who had been there and done that, and we hired them. And then we kept track of them. We didn't abnegate responsibility, but we allowed them a lot of rope to do what they did best, and we sort of acted, my brother and I, as sort of the rudder of the business, not the steering wheel.
The food industry is a little different than other industries. And so how does building a business in the food industry differ when you're trying to scale?
Well, it's a very, very good question, especially in the bagel business, which is every bagel, every minute, every store, they're all different. It's a living yeasted bread product. And I think that in general in the food business, customers don't have a lot of tolerance for mistakes. You know for yourself, you go in a restaurant, you have a bad experience or even a so-so experience, you're more than likely not going to go back because there's a whole lot of alternatives. And we understood that very well. My dad was in the food business, and he was very obsessive about quality and cleanliness and things like that. So we made sure that the details were attended to in a very, very vigilant fashion, and grew at a pace that we could manage that excellent supervision. And I think that was really one of the key things to building our brand as successfully as we did.
How did you come up with the recipe for the bagel?
Well, that was a very serendipitous. I mentioned that I spent a year researching the bagel industry, And in the course of that exploration, I was able to go to a bagel shop in Western Massachusetts. It's a very long story, but it turns out it was a customer from another business who I unearthed, if you will, and went into her shop. She had a great product, and I said, Susan, I got to get hold of this recipe. This is unbelievable. Can I buy it from you? At which point she said, well, it's not my recipe, but I'll send you the information on whose recipe it is. I went to see him, this other gentleman. We worked out a deal, and he became what they call in Yiddish a maven. So he was the one that knew everything about everything. And he became Noah's Bagels maven, and we would open up new facilities or expand our plant or whatever. We'd bring in Danny. He'd take a look, advise us, and suggest what changes and what equipment we needed every step along the way. And he ensured that his recipe maintained its excellence as we grew the enterprise.
I'm visiting here today with Noah Alper, the founder of Noah's Bagels. Noah, we need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages. And I want to get more into talking about your journey as an entrepreneur.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olson Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olson Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm visiting today with Noah Alper. He is the founder of Noah's Bagels and also serial entrepreneur. And I want to clarify for the listeners that Noah has sold the business many years ago. They continue to maintain his name. But we're listening to the story about Noah's journey as an entrepreneur. And so I want to go back to your early days of how you first wanted to know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, since I don't think Noah's was your first venture.
Right. No, it wasn't my first venture. And I think it was interesting the way you phrased it. How did I know that I was going to be an entrepreneur? I would say more like it was in the blood. I had lemonade stands when I was 9 years old. I grew up in New England and would put my sign in the snow, in March, because I was ready to go and get into business. And it just was, I think I would say, in the blood, if you will. I know with some folks it's a journey, but for me, I know without knowing I was going to go into business, I just knew that I loved it.
Well, let's talk about your early days and some of the businesses that you started and had success, and I'm sure there's others that didn't go as well.
Right. Yes, I have started a number of businesses. The first business was called Bread and Circus, and it was in Massachusetts. It was way back in 1973, at the very beginning of the natural foods craze, if you will, or trend, and had a retail store and had that store for 3 years and developed a nice little clientele. It was starting to burgeon, but I decided that I wasn't the one that wanted to move it into the supermarket phase, which is where it needed to go, and I recognize that. But being confined in a retail space like that was something I sort of too freeform, if you will. I kind of need to move around a little bit more, and I vowed at the time, and I thought this is ironic, that I would never go into the retail business again, only to have 38 stores with Noah's Bagels. So I think the notion of never say never is very important for your listeners. But that business went well, but we sold it to another entrepreneur from Ireland who eventually built that business up to be the largest natural foods chain in the Northeast. And it eventually, about the same time we sold Noah's, got sold to a Whole Foods Market, and it's now part of Whole Foods Market in New England. So that was the first business. The second business was a Gourmet Housewares business, chopping boards and salad bowls and all artisan-made things from around the world. And that also tied in with another trend, which was gourmet cooking, which was coming from Europe, and Julia Child was on TV, and French cooking, and Americans understood they could do this in their own kitchens. They were getting away from the Chef Boyardee canned ravioli and into a higher class of food. And we sold all kinds of materials to accompany that cooking and serving experience at home. Sold that business after 8 years. And then a trip to Israel changed my life, and I decided that I wanted to do something significant to help the economy of Israel, and I knew I had gift experience and knowledge of housewares business, and decided to bring in gifts for the fundamentalist Christian community in the United States, gifts made from Israel, and thought it was a fabulous idea. It turns out it wasn't such a great idea, and if it was, I certainly wasn't the one that was able to execute it properly. And so after about 3 years of experimenting with different products, with food products, with gifts and with religious articles, it was a mail order catalog towards the end, a lot of different permutations to try to make this concept work, I realized it wasn't going to make it, and I had to close the business, and it was a very tough time for me. Not only had I basically lost whatever resources I had, except for a very small reserve, but it was a blow to my self-esteem, and I wondered whether I was capable of doing it again. And I had a couple of successes, a couple of singles and doubles, if you will, but thought maybe it was time that I would have to go to work for someone, which is something I really didn't know about. Then my brother gave me the idea of the bagel business, and I should do the bagel business. And as I mentioned earlier, I started it, and it became a tremendous success.
Let me cut you off right there. We got to take a quick break.
Sure.
But I want to, when we get back, I want to go back into this bagel business story and talk about what you learned from the failures and what motivated you to start up again.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after these messages.
He's the world's most trustworthy man. Tax filing deadlines are scheduled around his vacation calendar. The IRS agent who audited his client apologized.
I don't always advise people on their taxes, but when I do, I save them every penny legally possible.
GrowCo CPAs and Advisors.
Come to GrowCo and stay wealthy, my friend.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Noah Alper. He's the founder of Noah's Bagels, as well as a serial entrepreneur. Before the break, we were talking about your segue into a multitude of businesses, and I want to go back to you just had a business failure, nearly wiped you out. You had a little bit of cash reserve, but you were down and out. First of all, whatever inspired you to want to do it again after suffering a failure, and then second, what did you learn from your mistakes?
It's a great question. Well, I looked around at alternatives, and I think that's one thing I've learned over the years is successful entrepreneurs, successful business people try to look out over the universe of options before making a move. And I looked at a bunch of businesses to buy, and nothing in the small business field was, it was overpriced. It was not for me. So I didn't really find anything out there to buy. And then I decided, you know what, I better look for a job. So I went to a career counselor, headhunter guy, and he looked at me, he said, you're too old and you're too entrepreneurial and I don't have anything for you. So I was a little between a rock and a hard place when my brother suggested that I go into the bagel business. And I questioned it for a while. I had been knocked down in that other business. Could I really pull myself back up? There was some resilience there. I can't exactly explain where it came from. I think it was probably a competitiveness that came to me as a child. We were very sports-oriented and always wanted to win the game, and I think I can do it again. But before I did it, I wanted to make sure that this bagel thing made sense. And I think that there's a misconception that entrepreneurs go out there and they just, they're devil-may-care risk takers. And that's really not true from my experience. The successful ones, are kind of obsessive compulsive types, and at the same time, risk takers. So I have to have a little bit of both, I think, to really succeed. And so I didn't decide to go into the bagel business until I was pretty rock solid sure that it was going to make it.
A lot of entrepreneurs are out there, and they're good at running their own shop, but it comes time to decide, should I open a second store?
Right.
Was that a hard decision for you?
Well, the way it worked out, Alan, was this same brother who gave me the idea to do the bagel business showed up a year later, surprise, surprise, and wanted in. And took me some time to figure it out because he was the older brother and who's going to be the boss and so forth and so on. But what I realized was this business had tremendous potential. The one store I had was a grand slam home run. And I felt it would be a shame to limit it at that. And he had an MBA from Stanford, and he had a lot of pieces that I didn't have, the administration and finance piece, the real estate piece. I was more the marketing and brand guy and quality control. And so I started to realize that together we could really make this thing fly. And that's why I decided that I would not try to go and open, incremental one store at a time type of thing, but rather develop a team that we could really take this thing much, much further than I could on my own.
It's interesting because over the years, as I've been in the industry and seen businesses come up, the formula of it always takes more than one to really have a business.
Oh, yes.
And there you found it with your brother. Who
Yes.
could you trust more than your own blood?
Right.
But that second store, how did you do it? Did you say you're in charge of the second store?
Well,
we
we had it, and I think this is also very important. We had our roles very clearly defined. When we started out, he was licensing the name, so it wasn't all one entity at that point. I was a licensor, he was the licensee. The idea was he was going to open up retail stores. I was going to create a commissary that would service these retail stores. So I would take care of the production and the distribution and the marketing, and he would take care of the retail operations. And that's how it went for a couple years. He developed his own team. I had my team. And then we came to realize that we would be much better served joining forces in terms of being able to attract talent, in terms of being able to attract capital, and so forth to operate as one entity. And that's what we did. We rolled it all together.
In the early years, were you bootstrapped, self-financed, or did you? How did you do the expansion?
I mean, we were bootstrapped, and then it was debt financing, and then slowly but surely we added partners, and until sort of towards the end, we had Starbucks was a 25% owner of Noah's Bagels. Towards the end, we had venture capital money, we had debt financing. It was really layers of financing.
When you finally made the decision for your exit, was it planned? Was it in the works to say, I'm going to go up to this point and then,
No, it actually wasn't. We were growing very nicely and had virtually no competition. And I just wanted to make the point that, while we're on the subject, that it was very important for me, I guess because I'm a little paranoid to begin with, was always to look over my shoulder and see who was coming behind and make sure that we were at our tip-top shape, even though we owned the market, if you will. And so it served me well because the competition didn't come until the very end. And then the Einstein Brothers Bagel Company out of Golden, Colorado, were rolling up bagel chains across the country. And they gave us basically two options. The first was to sell to them. The second was to see an Einstein Brothers across the street from every Noah's Bagel store. So it came to a point where it was good that we had maintained our quality, because we decided at first that we would take them on and that we would go national and accelerate the pace that we were embarking upon. We later decided, after a year and a frankly a sweeter offer, to sell the business. But We were very well positioned in either direction, but our intention was to grow incrementally like we had been doing all along.
Ironically, so even though you joined forces with Einstein's, it's known as Noah's today.
Right, and I think that's a testimony to the strength of the brand that we had developed.
Can I get you to stay for one segment more?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back after these messages. We're visiting today with Noah Alper, the founder of Noah's Bagels.
With current laws, we have left our children an enormous financial burden. Even though they may be too young to understand it. At GrowCo, we care about you and the ones you love, and the quality of your and their lives. Call us today to see how we can help. 877-CPA-2006.
Coco helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Noah Alper. He is the founder of Noah's Bagels and a serial entrepreneur. Noah, how do you build a brand?
Well, I think you build it brick by brick, Alan. At least that's my sense of it. I think there needs to be a sense of authenticity. I think there needs to be a sense of consistency, and everything that the business entails has to support that brand and has to be consistent and not digress from the core message that the brand is trying to transmit.
How does ethics influence the way you have built your businesses?
I think the success of Noah's, beyond having a fabulous product, was largely due to the fact that we treated our employees, our customers, and the community like partners in the business. We made sure that our people were paid above the going wage of quick-serve retailers, that we took care of them. If they had to go and study for a test, we gave them the afternoon off to do that. Things that golden rule type things was very, very important to us. Regarding the community, we had a slew of different community service projects that were front and center in our company's ethos. We had the employees participate in those community service projects, and that built a tremendous cohesiveness amongst our employees, and our customers reap the benefits of those perspectives. The metric on our success was that we had the turnover rate half of industry average for quick-serve retailers, and we had name recognition in the San Francisco Bay region just slightly below McDonald's, number 2 in marketing research that we did towards the end of our tenure at Noah's. So I think we were doing it right.
What is the most vital part to building the business then?
I think that making sure that the product is fabulous, making sure that you can execute it every day, and that the team that you've developed to do the development and the execution is first rate and has a tremendous rapport one with another.
Why is it important for entrepreneurs to maintain a balanced life?
I write about this in my book, which is called Business Mensch, Timeless Wisdom for Today's Entrepreneur. And a mensch in Yiddish means a human being, or what a human being should be, not just a human being. And I write a lot in the book about balance and about how taking time off to look out over your business, to enjoy the fruits of your labor, is not only important in terms of developing and maintaining a healthy home life and happy home life, but it's actually good for your business.
I love that. The balanced life. It's not meaningful to have a successful business without applying the balanced life behind it. So your book is, again, called Business Mensch, and they can find it off Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote this basically to give back in terms of helping people understand the wisdom from your learning experience.
Right.
Visiting here today with Noah Alper. Noah's a serial entrepreneur, also the founder of Noah's Bagels. Noah, in terms of finding you, you do some business consulting, don't you?
I do.
And again, how does a person contact you?
So people could contact me by email at noah@noahalperconsulting, all one word, .com.
noahalperconsulting.com. .com.
ALPER.
It's Noah Alper. I appreciate you joining today's show.
Thank you very much, Alan. It was my pleasure to be here.
You're listening to American Dreams with Alan Olson on AM 1220 KDOW.